of that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go to what we've been looking at, our 2020 vision. In 2020 vision, we are looking at God's word, and right now we're just studying how does it all come together. We know there are 66 different books in the Bible, 39 in the Old Testament, 27 in the New Testament, but it's important for us to realize that all of that goes together. God did not just randomly put things there, and we've looked through the different steps, and so far we've gone through 4 different steps, and let me review those very quickly. The first one is step number 1 is the beginning. God laid the foundation for a nation, and those were Genesis 1 through 11. Step number 2 was the Hebrew fathers, and we see how Abraham fathered the nation. Step number 3, the Exodus. Moses is going to help take the children of Israel out of Egypt and going to help found this nation. Step number 4 is what we looked at last week. Joshua right here finds land for the nation. They go in and they conquer the promised land. And that leads us to step number 5. And last week we said how step 4, Joshua's generation, may be the greatest generation. Step number 5, we see a generation of a lot of disappointments. Anarchy in Israel. And this covers the book of Judges, Ruth, and the first part of 1 Samuel there. And what we see when we come to this, we see that Joshua's generation has great success, but they don't fully obey. They don't fully drive the people out of the land. Some, the reason was fear. Others, they leave there because of the convenience. We'll let them work for us. But what happens? Exactly what God said would happen if they did not drive the people out. And we see that the people there are going to turn away from God. And the verse in Judges that basically sums up the entire book is the last verse in the book of Judges. Judges chapter 21 verse 25 says, "In those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes." Every man did what was right in his own eyes and what was wrong in God's eyes. And we see a cycle repeat itself throughout the book of Judges. And this is listed for you in Judges 2, verses 12 through 23. The first thing that happens is sin comes in. They begin to turn and begin to follow other gods. God is then going to send in a nation that is going to sort of conquer that area. And that's slavery. The people finally turn back to God and they pray to God and they cry out to God for his deliverance, the supplication that they make. And what does God then send? Salvation. He sends a judge that will come in and help lead the people away back to God and have victory over their enemies. But you know what happens again and again? As soon as that judge dies, the people go right back into this cycle. As many different judges rule over them. And some of the different judges, maybe the more familiar ones you have is you have Gideon. Remember, he had to take the army down to 300 men to have a victory over the Midianites. Deborah. The last really judge that's mentioned in the book of Judges is Samson. And here's a guy that is very prominent, but really when you look at his life, a man with great promise, never reached his potential. And this is what goes on in the book of Judges. Really, you read it, and you can almost be disappointed. It can be a tough book to read because you see so much potential. Here they are in the promised land. And what are 2 quick lessons that we can take from this step? Step number 5, the Judges. The first one is we must teach the next generation. How important that is. Let me read you a verse from here in Judges 2, verse number 10, which I think sort of gives us what went on here. In Judges 2, verse 10, it says, "And also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers." This is talking about Joshua's generation. "And there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel." What a sad part. There arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord. That is why it is so important that we teach our children, the kids, the teenagers in this area, about who God is. And I'm thankful for LJ that works with the kids. And right now, every single day, they can go online and learn a little bit more about who God is. It's important for us to teach. And let me tell you one more takeaway. God's love. You say, wait a minute, what? God's love, we see judgment coming again and again. How can God's love be seen in this? Because here's what we would do. We would write this nation off. 3 strikes and you're out, right? But God continually forgives them and sends them somebody to deliver them. We see God's love in this chapter, in this book, over and over again, because God is love. So step number 5, a little bit disappointing. We see anarchy. Everybody does what's right in their own eyes. But God does not give up. God still loves them. And next week, we'll look at step number 6,